Twitter used to be the central hub for US Soccer Fandom, and it is not anymore. So today I want to talk a little bit about the reasons behind that and how I feel personally about the downfall of Twitter and the decomposition of US Soccer Fandom from there. This is not meant to be a video about politics or about the change in ownership of Twitter, but more so just my thoughts on where I am in life today and how that's kind of followed the trajectory of where I felt like I could be surrounded 24/7 by people that felt the same way as me. I think everyone that loves soccer in America has at some point in their life experienced a time when they were laughed at or belittled for enjoying soccer or soccer being their favorite sport. And Twitter was a place where you could find people that felt the same way as you. You could make your community as small or large as you wanted. And what I felt like was amazing about Twitter, especially having started content creation in 2020, is that I could interact directly with players. I could interact directly with coaches, with agents, with anonymous statisticians or tacticians, or just fans in general. And all of that was put into one place. I mean, there are plenty of interviews on this channel from early on where it was completely administered and facilitated by DMs on Twitter. It could have been players. It could have been players' parents. I remember a certain player parent calling me and talking to me for an hour and a half, giving me completely unknown information about their transfer to a certain team. And that was just what Twitter was. It was literally everyone in one melting pot that could communicate and get in touch with each other. It meant so many paths were opened up. And just for fans in general, soccer is not the most watched or most talked about sport. And so Twitter was a place where you could interact directly with those people that you were watching on TV all the time. You might remember, if you've been watching this channel for a long time, there were early days where the podcast was myself and Tom. At one point on Twitter, I had asked if any fans wanted to join because we were looking to potentially have a third person join the podcast. That person was Ryan. Ryan was with us for probably 50 or 60 episodes until I fell off the face of the planet again. Ryan came to visit me in London at the same time that Chris Richards was moving to Crystal Palace. Now, Ryan, who is part of the podcast now, had become Chris Richards' dog sitter because Ryan lived in Germany on an army base and through Twitter had become the dog sitter for Chris Richards. So because of Twitter, Ryan was part of the podcast. Ryan was dog sitting for Chris Richards. And I got to go to Nando's with Chris Richards' mom, and Chris Richards' brother, and Ryan. And all of that happened because of Twitter. None of that would be possible today. I mean, there are forums like Big Soccer, there is Reddit, there is YouTube. But for the most part, like, where are you really getting your real-time information? Where are you getting roster releases? Where are you getting transfer news? And where are you interacting on a day-to-day basis with players and their parents? Nowhere. And I don't want to spend too much time on the fall of Twitter itself because I did mention, even in 2020 and 2021, it wasn't going as well as it used to in the 2010s. But when Elon took over and you needed to start paying to essentially have your posts seen, and if you weren't paying, all you got were anime titties and grifting, then that wasn't really a great place to talk about soccer. I think the main issue, though, with Twitter as it started its decline, and this was even before Elon got there, is our communication to each other was so antagonistic, and the reason for this was an algorithmic expansion of controversy and engagement. Take nothing away from Tactical Manager right now. He is the master of stirring the pot, saying really dumb stuff, trying to back it up, and then arguing with the hundreds of people that come and try and argue with him. And Twitter, for their business model, felt like getting engagement was the best way to keep people online and on their platform. So it did not matter if you had added value to a user's life. It did not matter if your essay or your video was good. All that mattered is that it stirred conversation. And I think when adding value is placed below engagement and anger in terms of business priority, that is never going to foster a community that you want to be a part of. So probably in 2023 and 2024, I left the platform and really started to focus as much as I could on YouTube. It really made it hard to connect to fans and just share the passion that we used to. I'll also say, for me, even before creating content, it was a place where I could get all the information that I needed to about what I cared about right away and easily. Right now, I'm in a place where I am not coming from, a place of authority. I am not an expert on US soccer because life has changed for me. I have 2 young kids. I'm focusing on a career in my family. And you probably have noticed that even though I'm back making videos, they're not necessarily of the same style or ilk that I used to. Some of that is because I don't feel like I want to make those same style of videos, and some of it is because I don't have the time or ability to do those deeper dives, to use my background and experience to add value. So my value is probably no longer more from education, but more from empathizing and being friends with you. Like honestly, that is probably where I see the future of this channel going, is being much more conversational and just sharing my thoughts that I think a lot of us are having and trying to put into words how a lot of us are feeling. You'll have to decide for yourself if that's a value add that you want to be a part of, but it's just where I am, and it does feel a little narcissistic and self-absorbed because everyone has their own voice and there's nothing that makes me special to share my voice on YouTube. But I do have a community and I do enjoy just talking and just conversing about these different topics. Yeah, you probably have seen a difference in the last few videos just because I'm experimenting, I'm trying to find my way again, just because I do enjoy the creative process and I want to be back making videos again, but I just can't commit myself to doing things like I have in the past. And I think that's a good and healthy thing. So what do we do from here? Because there's been a loss of a central location where we all can get together and talk about these things in real time. There is YouTube, right? There's comments, but that doesn't feel the same. There's Blue Sky. It feels like all that's done is really fractured the user base between Twitter and Blue Sky and everything else. There's a barrier of entry to Discord that there wasn't for other social media platforms. And interestingly too, I don't know if you've felt this way, but in the 2010s, even before Twitter was a huge thing and everybody was on it, the fact that US Soccer had this fandom that could watch every game on TV, the World Cup was big, the Copa America in 2016 was big, you could find these pockets, whether it was in real life or on TV, to see what the fandom was like, to be able to talk about it and to be able to keep up with it. And now that most of the games, whether it's Major League Soccer on Apple TV, whether it's the English Premier League on Peacock, whether it is the US national teams on HBO Max, all of these things have been put behind a barrier. And to strip that away, while stripping away the place of community that we had, it really feels like the entire fandom has completely buckled from a place where I felt so optimistic that we were kind of coming up on this critical mass moment that soccer would become one of the main sports in America. And we've probably taken 3 steps back and 1 step forward because, yeah, soccer organizations, US Soccer Federation, MLS, EPL, they're all making more money than they ever have before, but at what cost? Because I don't feel that there is a community or a movement behind any of those things like I did when you would think 10 or 12 years ago, we were much less connected than we are today. And that makes me feel like all this social fabric has deteriorated. The connection that we all have made through those is not something that has lasted or been built to stand the test of time. And we kind of find ourselves at step 1 again, a year away from the World Cup that we are hosting. I would have thought 3 or 4 years ago that this would be one of the most exciting times to be a soccer fan. And it has felt so much like the opposite, where there is so much apathy, even within the community. Every single Reddit thread that I read is just filled with negative energy, with pessimism. And rightly so, they're talking about fees and ticket sales and how much it costs so that you can't take your family to games, so you can't buy MLS Pass, so that you can't buy HBO Max, so that you can't go to the Club World Cup, so that you need to pay $80 extra 3 years ahead of time so you can get in line for a chance to buy World Cup tickets in 2026. And I guess I don't want to feed so much into the pessimistic view, but it just feels like something needs to change within the community and the fan base to get us back to where we were, because I don't feel like US Soccer or any of these organizations really care about those actual movements that are behind them, because they don't see it in their bottom line yet. And I don't know if they ever will, to be honest. The reason they can charge that much for tickets or charge that much for streaming services is because an economist somewhere or an MBA from McKinsey somewhere has told them that that is the equilibrium price that they will make the most amount of money for the least amount of work. So we get to a point now where we're not really talking about an outcome or a realistic fix for all of this, but there has to be something to be said about engagement, visibility, and growth of the game. And maybe it's just literally me being older and not being able to see what the younger generation is seeing. If you are less than 25 years old watching this video, I'd love to hear your perspective right now on how you're being a fan and how you're engaging with the team, because I just don't see it. And I know for a fact, because I have been doing this and engaging with you for years and years and years, that you probably don't see it or feel it either. Now, I think it is probably going to revert back to something that needs to be community driven, that needs to be built, whether it's through supporters groups or other online forums or other online places. But there needs to be a place where we can all come back together and talk about this beautiful game and the amazing team that we love. I am hopeful that in the future, whether it is the Club World Cup, whether it's the World Cup next year, whether it is the Gold Cup this summer, whether it's Mauricio Pochettino, whether it's some of these newer players, something will spark us back to where we want to be as a fandom, because right now it feels a little lost at the most critical time that you could ever choose to be at for US soccer in general.